Welcome back to the Backyard Boatyard series as we explore the exterior of the Catalina 22 today. We'll talk about all the points of rigging and all the points of sail on the Catalina 22. Now, everything I know about sailing you can fit in a thimble, so here comes a thimble full of sailing knowledge. This is the Catalina 22 I bought off of Craigslist a year ago for $4,500. That included this brand new engine, these decent sails, and some excellent cushions inside. Well worth the price of admission. My name's Juan Brown and you're watching the Blanco Lirio channel. We already covered the interior of the Catalina in the previous interview. Now we'll discuss some of the points on the exterior. This is a 1980 Catalina 22, and some of the features that make it such a great and stable family sailing boat is this sloop configuration with a rather large head sail, genoa, or jib, and a relatively small mainsail with a very high boom, so it's nice and safe for the whole family to ride under the boom of the Catalina 22. Another neat feature is the high amount of freeboard that the Catalina has. The freeboard is the distance from the top of the cockpit to the waterline. That makes for a very dry sailing vessel. Also, the vessel has great lifelines all the way around it and solid pulpits on both ends. A sailboat can sail just about any direction it wants to except for into the wind, and about 30 to 40 degrees into the wind is what the sailboat cannot do. Any other point of sail it can handle. This is the wind wonder do that I call from the top of the mast to help you figure that out, but of course the sails are going to start luffing and you're going to stall, and you're going to find out pretty quick that you're in the irons if you are too much into the wind. And that's the whole idea with these sails, is they're much like wings on an aircraft. They are shaped, airfoil shaped, to produce lift and pull the boat forward. Of course, you can always sail downwind and have the wind push you downwind, but the idea with a tall sloop design like this is to create a lot of lift and get pulled forward. So all this rigging that we're going to talk about is all about shaping these wings. It's kind of a pilot's dream to be able to have a wing that you can personally shape to fit the design requirements or the performance requirements at the time. So all these different points of sail, whether you're on a beam, a broad reach, or a beam reach, or a close reach, you need to trim these sails to match that condition for optimum performance. But you're still sailing. You're still only going 3, 4, 5, 6 knots. You're not racing very fast in the Catalina 22. And that's part of the stability of the design, is having a nice wide beamy, they call it beamy, the width of the God, I keep wanting to call it the fuselage. It's not a fuselage, it's a hull. The width of the hull. Another interesting factoid about these displacement hulls, this is a displacement hull on the Catalina 22. Displacement means it's got to displace the water out of the way to go forward. It means you're getting nowhere fast, in other words, unlike a planing hull, which can get on top of the water and plane. 1.34 times the square root of the waterline gives you your displacement hull speed, or your maximum hull speed. Even if I put 1,000 horsepower on the back of this thing, it's only going to go so fast. So with the little 5 horsepower Nissan Marine engine, or while sailing underway, that's a 22-foot boat. That waterline's probably approximately 20 feet long. That gives you a hull speed of approximately 6 knots. 6 knots, that's about it for a boat this size. Now, an interesting thing about sailing is when you heel over with the wind, you are effectively increasing the length of that waterline and thus are able to go faster. So the more you heel over to a point where you're spilling too much air out of the sails, you're actually increasing your speed. By increasing the length of the waterline, increasing your hull speed. If you ever read the free magazine Latitude 38, the sailing magazine available at all the pirate yacht brokers out here on the West Coast, great magazine, great classified, great columns. Look for Lee Helm, and he's the super nerd about sailing technology and sailing math and geometry. Every issue he's got a great column in there. Lee Helm, Latitude 38. Don't spend all day browsing the classifieds. A sail, like a wing of an airplane, has its own unique terminology. What I would call the leading edge of the sail is called the luff. The trailing edge of the sail is called the leech. The bottom of the sail is called the foot. And the top of the sail is called the head. And the point where it attaches down here is the tack and the point where it attaches on the trailing edge is called the clew. And that's the same terminology for the mainsail as well. You raise the jib with the jib halyard at the head of the sail, routes up through the top of the mast, down, and I'll show you where all lines led aft means that all the controls, all the running rigging, all the ropes in other words, is led to back to the cockpit for you to operate it. So that theoretically you don't have to run up here and mess with stuff until things get tangled. These little ribbons are called telltales, and they help you tell what the wind's doing, how your sail's performing. You control the jib with these lines here called jib sheets. Now I don't know why they call them sheets, they're ropes or lines, and they go all the way back to the winches in the aft of the cockpit, and we'll show you that in a second. And right now I have set up this whisker pole right here. This is something you can use when you want to sail downwind. This normally is not attached, of course, to the jib, and it mounts right here onto the mast. Quick release. This whisker pole is adjustable in length as well. And it's got a pointy end, and it just pokes right through the clew of the sail, the big grommet at the end of the sail. Here, of course, is your forward hatch. Here, of course, is the mast for the mainsail, and it's held in place by a series of shrouds. An upper shroud, which is spread by the spreaders and attaches right down here. A couple of lower shrouds which attach right there at the spreader. A forward lower shroud and an aft lower shroud, which also attach here for the forward and there for the aft. And these shrouds are connected to the hull via quick release pull pins. Forward stay, a forestay, which attaches to the bow of the boat, and an aft stay, kind of hidden behind the sail, which attaches to the transom via an adjustable backstay. Shrouds are what you use to tune your mast, to straighten it out. On a trailer sailor, you're going to be using these shrouds a lot when you raise and lower the mast. Setting up the Catalina 22 for the trailer is will be a whole separate video series. Here at the bow of the boat is the bow pulpit. I leave this buoy up here for trailering the boat and storing the mast up here. Here's the connection for the tack of the jib with this nice little marlin spike, super trick hardware. And here's the forestay attach point. Remember, it goes down to the chain plate located down here. This is a hank-on jib as opposed to roller furling. Roller furling just unwinds like a big Venetian blind. Hanks, I suppose, are the clips that you use to get the jib up onto the forestay. Nav lights for nav running and cleats for tying off to the dock. The Catalina 22 is made in two parts, the hull and the top sides, and it's bonded right here. These shroud tubes, basically PVC pipe, help prevent chafing of the jib sheet. Look at that, we're getting a little shape to the sail now, a little breeze piped up. Shaped just like a wing. It's got a belly to it, needed for lift. These are the two halyards that raise and lower the sails. This one raises and lowers the jib, and this one raises and lowers the mainsail. And when you hear a boat for sale, all lines led aft, this is an example. The halyards come down through a pulley, another pulley, and aft to a cleat in the cockpit. They just cleated off right here at the mast, which means you got to come forward and deal with it. Much safer to operate everything from the cockpit. The boom is attached to the mast right here at the gooseneck. Here's the tack of the mainsail, and the mainsail slides up the mast with these sail slides. Here's one I missed. You drop them in this slot here and run them up the mast. You put this little stopper in here if you want to drop the mainsail and not lose all the sail slides. The sail has a designator for the type of boat, C22, Catalina 22, and a unique number for racing. And that black line up there, a speed stripe, really helps you see the shape of your sail and help you trim your sail. Trim your wing, adjust your airfoil shape. On the trailing edge of the sail, or the leech, are a series of battens, which are strips of hard plastic which add stiffness to the trailing edge or the leech of the sail. These are reefing lines if you want to reef the sail or make the sail smaller under windy conditions, and this sail has 2 sets, another set way up there. So if things get way too windy out there, you can take down your jib or your Genoa sail and you can reef your mainsail to a very small cross section. That will reduce heeling or tipping of the boat. Heeling is actually measured down here with your little tiltometer right there. It's kind of fun to watch. Helps you figure out where you are and what you need to adjust. The mainsail halyard is led aft to this cleat back here. And that raises and lowers the mainsail. As you're lowering the sail on the aft stay here, you have this boom topper, a really neat thing to hold the boom up while you lower the sail and prevent the boom from crashing down on all your guests as you lower the sail. As you lower the sail, you can tidy it up with these sail ties. Now let's pull her back up. The tack of the sail and the gooseneck of the boom is tied off with this cleat right here. The foot of the mainsail rides in the boom via this slot here. And the clew of the sail is tightened up with this outhaul. With the outhaul being cleated off right back here. And the outhaul line is very long in case you need to reef the sail. And the clew of your sail moves quite a bit forward each time you reef. Be sure and remove this, your boom topper, when you want to actually go sailing. You won't get very much action with this connected. Here's your main sheet for controlling your boom. You can see it's got a lot of mechanical advantage via pulleys. And it cleats off right here. This main sheet is also attached to a car and a traveler, so you can adjust the boom as you're heeled well over and get the boom better centered using this car and traveler system. The lines for the car come through the pulleys and get cleated off right here. And over here. The jib sheets run through this adjustable block right here and back to the winch and cleat off right here. Remember, when you're doing a winch, you just wrap it around clockwise like that and away you go. Ready about heartily! These little pouches here help stow the extra line from the halyards and help keep your cockpit nice and tidy. If they just stay up in position, gotta get some new ones. And this is a nice feature not found on all Catalinas, an adjustable backstay. The backstay comes to this triangle shape here, and by putting tension here, you're putting additional tension on the backstay, and you are physically bending the mast aft for further fine-tuning of your sails. Here's your tiller and tiller extension, so you can easily steer the boat from the comfort of the cockpit. The tiller bolts on right here and is somewhat adjustable. A nice solid aft rail for climbing on and off the boat. This is a Magma grill mount here for grilling chicken outside. Horseshoe ring, get a line, lifeline for that. And a retractable rudder. Another great feature of the Catalina, with a retractable keel and retractable keel rudder, you can run this thing right up onto the beach. That cleats off right here and tensions right here. And that's movable. That is one heavy rudder. Of course, in sailing world, you can't just call these hinges. These are gudgeons and pintles, and it's got this little safety release here. Without that, it's very easy to lose the whole rudder assembly and tiller. Ask me how I know. A decent step ladder, an absolute safety requirement for getting back on the vessel if you should ever fall overboard. Nissan 4-cycle outboard long shaft engine and mount here. So it's in the raised position now, easily lowered right down into the water. So up here by the companionway are your 2 cockpit drains. Very important to keep those clear. Got a winch handle. You can put your stow your winch handle right there. Winch handle and a winch, of course, for cranking it up, tightening up these winches. Generally out here in the lakes and light sailing, I rarely use the winches. Quick release lifeline for boarding the vessel while at the dock. And air vents for the bilge below. More cleats for tying off at the dock. This device is absolutely critical for trailering. It's what holds the aft end of the mast up when you're trailering. This fits right in where the rudder goes, and this end telescopes and rolls the mast so that you can get this up real tall and raise the mast. Way down here is the swing keel, a very heavy lead, I believe, keel that retracts from the cable and trailer winch, which we showed you on the interior of the boat via cable attaching back here towards the aft end of the swing keel. Now, the only 2 through hulls in this very fair Catalina 22 hull are located up inside the trailing edge of this swing keel, and that is the through hull for the cable itself and the through hull for the drains for the cockpit. Keel pivots on these bronze bushings located right up here. If you get excessive play in your keel, check those bushings. We discussed the advantages and disadvantages of the swing keel design over fixed keels. The major disadvantage being the swing keel is probably a more draggy design, a less efficient design than a fixed keel. But it's only a sailboat. You're only going so fast anyways. So the much greater advantages are it's much easier to trailer, get it on and off the trailer without having a big tall keel to deal with and the boat way up here. That makes it easier to get in and out of the water without a tongue, and of course it allows you to get in super shallow conditions. You can retract that keel while you're underway and come right up and even beach it onto the shore. Same thing with the retractable rudder. Of course, get your motor up out of the way also. So that's some of the exterior features of the Catalina 22 and what their functions are. In the next video, we'll take you out on the water and show you how she goes.